So I'm here today with Isaac Folmsbee from Udundy and Compose. Udundy is a A/B testing agency, and Compose is their internal app that they've built, which is also available for anyone to use and connects and integrates deeply into Shopify. But today we're going to be talking about checkout extensibility and the caveats with A/B testing in the Shopify checkout. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first off, hot topic, testing in Shopify checkout has always been relatively impossible. So with checkout extensibility, it does give merchants a little bit more freedom to A/B test in the checkout, but it's not that simple and it's not a complete free-for-all. So what should merchants know and how does A/B testing work right now in Shopify checkout?
Yeah. So traditionally, how people have been able to test in their checkout is using third-party tools such as Compose to be able to inject or to hide certain parts of the checkout. But moving forward, Checkout Extensibility will somewhat lock down how you can do testing. And so Shopify in the future is planning on enabling it through profiles. And so what profiles will be is similar to themes on your store. You can have multiple different themes and you can switch between those themes. And maybe some of them are very different, or maybe some of the themes are like almost the exact same, but just have minute differences. And so Shopify's intention behind this is you'll be able to do something similar to split page testing, where some of your customers go to profile A and then some of your customers go to profile B. And so maybe you want to test an upsell or you want to test some messaging in your checkout. You would set up one profile that's just your regular checkout, and then you would set up another profile that has whatever differences you want to A/B test. It's currently not possible. So unfortunately, most merchants will just not have any way to be able to A/B test for at least a few months. I think Shopify mentioned Q4 for enabling this profile to profile testing. But in the meantime, there doesn't seem to be anything preventing first party apps from being able to do their own A/B tests. If there's an app like Rebuy, for example, that maybe has upsells, then internally their own tool would have to build some way to do their own A/B testing. I'm not aware of any tools that have done this so far, but I don't think there's anything that's preventing that. So in the future, though, once Shopify enables the profile to profile A/B testing, merchants will be able to use third-party tools like Compose to be able to put one profile up against another profile and then see what the conversion rate differences are, the engagement ratios, and all of those things.
So Shopify is really good at teasing what might be coming and getting everyone excited, but then it's like, okay, hurry up and wait. So do you think the profiles, like their concept for the profiles is coming from an A/B testing demand or for also for other types of use cases that businesses are trying to handle?
I think that the intention behind the profiles was mostly from their themes. As Shopify has it now, you can just have a list of themes. Maybe you only have one theme, or maybe you have a list of themes and you switch between them depending on what branding you want to go for or the different times of the year. So I think Shopify kind of took this concept and just used it to be able to solve another problem as well. And so the profiles, again, it really is just a collection of settings, a collection of fonts, configurations, apps that you have enabled, and they're all just grouped under a profile and you can switch between them. And so I think this is Shopify's easiest way of being able to allow A/B testing without building out entire new developer platforms to be able to plug into everything individually. Yeah, I think that it kind of was an afterthought of, oh, this will also solve the A/B testing that we need to do and be able to support. But I think initially it was just kind of a way of merchants being able to create new checkouts and preview them ahead of time and maybe switch between them.
Right, because I'm seeing a lot of like the rationale behind even checkout extensibility, for example, being able to help merchants be able to do stuff like if for their local market, they might have local pickup options or different types of payments and fulfillment that can differ from region to region. So it kind of makes sense that you would even have profiles for different countries, but definitely with the new kind of things that you can do, like if you are adding additional fields in the form, you should always be A/B testing that, or even different colors. It's going to make a difference with the contrast between your type or the readability of a font. So that's interesting. And in your day-to-day with your agency work, what kind of checkout tests are clients requesting or are you recommending?
Yeah, I think the big thing is clients want to be able to increase their conversion rates as much as they can, especially in the checkout. Once you've got somebody to the checkout, you've already sold them on the brand, you've already sold them on your product. It's just selling them on making a purchase. And so I think something that's kind of quite popular with merchants is to try to get a little bit more out of the purchase, whether it be an upsell or add-ons. I think the biggest thing from our agency is just reducing people from leaving the checkout. One thing that we have noticed over time is that anything that kind of distracts the customer from making that final final purchase is really wanting to be avoided. And so merchants themselves want to kind of add more and increase the sale that they've got once people have gotten to the checkout. But from our standpoint as well, I think it's also important to remember you also don't want to lose them. Just because they reach the checkout doesn't mean that they're going to make the final purchase. So,
well, that's true. Otherwise, we would be having 80% and higher checkout completion rates. And we know that
that's right.
not reality. But it's also, there's a lot of options to cross-sell and upsell in the cart step as well, which might be the more safer, but also more practical place to do it. But there's always debates around whether that is just introducing too much friction or too much distraction at the cart level. Have you been A/B testing that with your clients, and do you have any wisdom to share on that aspect?
Yeah. I think unfortunately it is quite nuanced. It depends on your customers. There are some brands where we've tested doing upsells or cross sales, and we've noticed a small uplift. It does increase conversions. It increases the average order value. But there are some brands where it's just too much distraction and it doesn't fit with the branding itself. Maybe your brand is posed in a way where that just sort of messaging just doesn't make sense for the brand. And so I think it is something that most merchants are going to need to test for themselves to be able to see, are my customers want to come to my store? Is this something that they would enjoy? Is it something that makes sense in my checkout? Or is it something that for them just adds friction? So I think that, yeah, in general, it's quite nuanced. You're not going to see a 50% increase or anything, but depending on the customers themselves, you could see a few percentage points up or down, depending on just the type of brand that you are.
There is this kind of behavior when you're shopping online where there's a goal to get free shipping. And so you'll see the little carrot, the notification in the cart. And now with extensibility and with checkout blocks specifically, being able to move that into the checkout as well. Like you've already crossed that chasm to start initiating checkout, and then you're getting another message of like, hey, you're $15 away from free shipping. And it's tricky, right? Because if you could read a customer's mind and you could select something from the catalog, which is very complimentary to what they have in the cart, which is a no-brainer $15 ad to suddenly qualify. That would be great, but it seems hard to do that programmatically or to do that in scale. But have you seen, like, when you would look at the bulk of your winners of the cases that you've done, do they share certain attributes or, certain conditions that we might be able to say is a best practice or, like a guide?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is definitely removing friction. And so if I am trying to put in an upsell, is this increasing friction? Is this something that my customer is going to think twice about what purchase they're making? Yeah, anything that's going to cause them to purchase more items, it could go either way. It depends on the customers themselves, but there are clear winners. I think there are some things that just overall end up being better. Most of the time, especially on mobile as well, is just removing additional information, just like too much information. It can make sense to have some small add-ons, some small content blocks that make sense for maybe showing messaging, showing upsells, or those sort of things, but you definitely don't want to overdo it. There is a certain point where you've gone too far and it's not going to help. And so I think that there is a sweet spot of adding things to the checkout where you can add a few things, maybe a few call outs, few upsells or something, but there is a point in which it's too much information and there's a point of diminishing returns. Maybe you've added one upsell and you've seen a pretty big uplift in the average order value, but adding 3 more isn't going to increase it threefold. So there is a point in which, there's an equilibrium on how much you should do. And I think that holds true for most of the merchants that we've tested with. Usually you can get more conversions from your checkout by adding something. The question is what, depending on your brand.
Is there like a most shocking result from your experience?
Yeah, I would say one thing that did shock us was we had a client who had a loyalty program. And so one of the things that they had in the loyalty program was a way to redeem points to get money off of your purchase. And so what we had implemented without A/B testing, which was the mistake, was we implemented a way that customers who weren't logged in could log into their account in the checkout and then proceed to their checkout and redeem those points. And so our thought process originally was that this would increase conversions because people would see that they could earn points in their order or they could redeem points for their order. And so we added that to the checkout. We decided to revisit that. I think it was a few months later, maybe a year later, and just A/B test removing it, seeing if that had any effect. And surprisingly, it significantly increased our conversions to remove that login. Our thought process behind that is that customers maybe went to go log in and either they forgot their password or they just simply got distracted from the checkout at that point. And so they just fell off and they weren't actually making that final conversion. And so that was kind of a surprising result, because our initial thought was that this is going to, motivate people even more to check out. They'll earn some points. They'll be able to maybe redeem some of their points that they have, but was not the case at all. So definitely something that we should have A/B tested the first time that we went to implement it.
So interesting, because we're in 2024 and we still have the same sort of account, username, password combinations. I remember a stat from like, man, it was maybe like 15 years ago already, but on how many accounts people would have on Amazon for the very fact of forgetting their password. I think
yeah,
now browsers have kind of helped that out. Like you'll store it so you can remember it at least in the browser. But the average was 10 accounts on Amazon.
that's not actually that surprising. I've seen a lot of accounts from some people.
Yeah. Makes it hard to
um,
do CRM that way.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually something too that Shopify is sort of trying to address. Is Shopify has their new Shop Pay, and they have noticed that people do tend to convert higher when there is the option for Shop Pay. Maybe it's a sense of trust in Shopify, some other reason, but there is sort of an increase in that. And so how Shopify decided to handle those accounts is that they don't have passwords. It's only based on the email themselves. And so every time you go to sign in, they just send a code to you, and then you get the code and you can sign in. And so maybe that's a part of it. Maybe not having to have a password, it helps people to feel less friction and those sort of things. But just another point of less friction maybe helps out more.
It's interesting because it's kind of just shifting the friction from, your browser to now your phone. You got to open it
Yeah.
up, get that code. You got to kind of remember it. You got to make sure you input it right. To me, it feels like a little bit more friction, but
Yeah. I think the other thing too, maybe it depends on emails, maybe on phones. I know that there's like the text message thing where it'll autofill the code from your text message. And so maybe most people have that for email as well. Maybe they get an email and it'll autofill the code from their email. Seems to be just email only is kind of the way that Shopify wants to push. So that way people don't forget as many passwords.
well, if they can solve that problem, more money in Shopify's pocket and everyone else's. So I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a bunch of people working on these solutions as we speak.
Yeah.
Let's talk about checkout blocks because it's kind of timely. This announcement, I think, happened last week, even if it's that fresh. But checkout blocks is this kind of third-party app that was able to have some no-code solutions for customizing using checkout extensibility. What are your thoughts on that acquisition? And especially since Compose is a no-code tool, do you see Compose being able to leverage profiles and checkout blocks natively to make A/B testing easier in the future?
Yeah, I think that overall, Shopify's acquisition of Checkout Blocks is going to be helpful to probably every merchant on Shopify Plus. I think for mid-sized businesses, it really opens up the doors to be able to add more functionality, add features to your checkout that maybe you weren't before because you don't have a full in-house dev team to build these things out. I think also for larger merchants, it'll still be helpful because it'll solve some of the simple things that will allow your developers to work on more pressing matters, things that they don't have to now, things that they have more time to attend to. And so yeah, I think where Compose can help out with this as well is checkout blocks. One thing that would be really helpful that we do on a lot of the merchants that I work on is add either a gift note or maybe some additional shipping information. And with checkout blocks, this is the simplest thing ever. You just add the new block, make it a additional notes type, and then you're done. But I think where Compose can help out with this a lot is that helping? Like, does it help to have that note there? And so, yeah, once Shopify does enable this profile to profile split testing, I think that, merchants without any external help should be able to implement new features, functionality, set it up, and then run an A/B test and see, does this help? Is this increasing my conversions against my regular checkout? And so, yeah, I think that this is overall going to be a really good thing for Shopify Plus merchants to be able to use checkout blocks very easily, modify their checkout, and add more functionality. And yeah, just in an afternoon, try out a few different tests, and well, maybe don't let your test run just for an afternoon, but implement a few different things and line up a row of tests to see what sort of things are helping and maybe aren't. So,
Well, it seems like Shopify is really thinking about how to make stuff more natively a part of the platform through acquisitions, through enabling sections everywhere, these little iterations that we keep getting as they do
yeah.
new releases and stuff. So from a developer perspective, is this exciting to you where like business users can take more control over simple things so the developers can focus on the big stuff?
I think so. Yeah. A lot of time, what we as developers like to spend our time on is those sort of high value add development things. So I think that checkout blocks being able to simplify a lot of the traditional standard sort of extensions that people will want, it just gives us developers more time to work on the exciting features that maybe are a bit more complex, maybe have a bit more functionality to them. And so ultimately, I think this will probably be a very good thing for Shopify, not only for Shopify, because it's another reason that merchants might want to sign up for the Plus plan, but also because merchants themselves now are getting more value out of that plan. They're being able to modify a part of the site that, before they would have required a full dev team, or at least a few developers, but now they can easily modify the checkout themselves and add new features and functionality. So yeah, I think ultimately this will be a really good thing for businesses and allow them to iterate and move even faster on things that their customers are looking for. So
Totally, totally. And one thing that I do like about the Compose app, I've had some chance to play around with it in the back end, is that it integrates directly with a theme. So it doesn't have a extra JavaScript and all that kind of stuff running on the front, but it also enables business users to do a lot more A/B testing independently. They'll be able to take a theme setting that comes out of the theme or that their developer or team is built in there, and then just be able to set up the A/B test independently in a much more streamlined way. So excited to see everything just kind of coming together. So go business users.
yeah, well, we're excited to hear that. Yeah, and that was the big goal, is to be able to allow people just go in and just through Shopify being able to customize things and then test, is it working or is it not, without having to outsource all these things to other teams and to get those things set up. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your insights. Anything else? Any final words that you want to drop on this topic? What's your thoughts about personalization? Are we moving in that direction? What would you like to see Shopify do next?
Yeah, I think there's still quite a lot of opportunity for Shopify to enable these things for merchants. One of the biggest things with checkout is you will be able to have different profiles. And for now, those profiles seem to just be themes that you could switch between, and all your customers will see one or the other. I know Shopify's intention is A/B testing in the checkout will be A/B testing one profile against another profile, but I would love to see from Shopify the ability to serve different profiles based on customer segments. So perhaps you have a customer segment for all of your customers who are in France, or all the customers who are in the United States, or perhaps you also have a segment of customers who maybe relate to a certain part of your brand more than another. And so I think if Shopify gives us the tools as developers to be able to build these things out for merchants, such that merchants can serve different themed checkouts, different checkouts entirely with different content, maybe different messages that speak to different people in their own ways that they relate with. I think this would be a big opportunity that I haven't seen a lot from Shopify about yet, but there certainly is quite a bit of potential. So
yeah, and do you think that Shopify would develop that capability itself, or the first step would be third-party apps? I know there are a lot of apps that are doing that for the beginning part of the journey up until checkout. So that would be a nice natural extension for something like a Kui or other apps that are doing like that. Yeah, so Shopify is teasing us with the profiles, but how long, if you were to ballpark it, do you think we are away from this type of future personalization?
we'll have to wait and see once profiles come out. If they I know that they want to give third-party tools APIs to be able to serve these different profiles, and so if they give us just enough flexibility, I think that when profiles come out, we might be able to do this. Maybe not immediately, it'll take us developers just a little bit of time to implement it, but I think that once this A/B testing through profiles is enabled, if there's enough flexibility, we might be able to enable this sort of personalization at the same time as A/B testing. If not, then we'll have to petition to Shopify to give us a bit more tools to enable these sort of features. But fingers crossed that once profiles come out with the checkout and being able to test those, at least with A/B testing, we might be able to have enough flexibility to enable this personalization as well to show the customers, what they relate to more.
I'd put money on it that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
So thanks, Isaac, for joining and sharing your insights on testing in the Shopify checkout. Where can we find you, and where can we find Compose?
You can find Compose at compose.co, co. Definitely check us out, see if it's something that makes sense for your business. I think that there's a lot of opportunities that Compose can open, especially for businesses that are looking to experiment and maybe expand their storefront and their marketing. You can find me at Isaac Folmsbee on LinkedIn. Besides that, give Compose a look and see if it makes sense for you.
Right on.